Hello, welcome to another episode of the G.I. Joe New News Review. I am joined by my special guest, Jamie Sullivan, the creator of the record-breaking G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero 300 cover. I don't know how well you can see that cover, but there's a lot of stuff on that cover. Um, Jamie, you've been on a roller coaster of a ride since the last time we spoke, like 8 months ago, with drawing, doing conventions, doing art pieces, mailing stuff out, and going to the doctor. There's just been so much going on with you.
I I go to the doctor all the time. the last the last 7 years of my life. Um, I'm diabetic, and things have been getting better. My eyesight is getting progressively worse, but you know that just comes with the territory of being diabetic. But yeah, I make very regular visits to the doctor and my eye surgeon. But GI Joe has been, yeah, it's been crazy. The last 6 years working on it for IDW has been awesome. I never thought in a million years when I was a kid that I'd be working, in some capacity on GI Joe. And then to be able to do, finish off my run with IDW with this cover was pretty awesome. I'm very fortunate to have an editor like Tom who kind of just let me run with it. So yeah, it's been really cool. Conventions, I've done conventions, for 15 years, but it's kind of nice that they've kind of started going again, with the ease of all the COVID restrictions and people feeling safe, um, going back out and going to shows with a lot of people. So that's been really, really cool. And I'm glad, the timing happened with IDW wrapping up GI Joe in this cover and conventions coming back. So that's been really great.
We missed you last year at Joe Fest. You
Yeah.
had to cancel due to some family something.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a lot going on with my eyes and surgeries and stuff, and it was just it was too much happening. Um, and I had to cancel another show. I had two shows happening in Vegas, and because of surgeries getting postponed and stuff, I wasn't able to attend. And it's unfortunate. People are really cool about understanding. Trust me, I've done, I just did SoCal Joe show and this past weekend on Sunday, and that show is super small. So I am not one of those. I'll do whatever show to help promote, the brand and the book and myself. And I'm happy to attend, most shows. And yeah, I was really bummed, but people understand that about me. So they're when I say I can't do a show, then they're really usually really cool about it and understanding. So that's nice.
Is there a possibility of this year maybe coming up?
I haven't been asked, so I don't know. It depends. I guess it depends on when it falls, and if I have anything else already booked.
I think it's June 10th and the 11th. It's up a few weeks earlier.
Oh, is it? Okay. So June in Augusta, Georgia. So that is gonna be toasty. It's gonna be really hot and lots of bugs. So but yeah, it's a possibility. They, like I said, they haven't asked me. So I mean, anything's possible. I mean, I've so I've kind of wrapped up, everything with GI Joe with IDW. So that's done. I have not talked to anybody at the new home of GI Joe.
Do you know who that
Um,
is?
I do know who it is. Pretty much everybody knows who it is.
We
Just
just
not gonna.
can't
And I just
officially
won't. I
announce
just
it.
won't say it out loud.
Yeah.
But but
Okay.
yeah. So, but everybody knows who it is. Nobody's reached out from that company to talk to me, and that's to be expected. You know, um, as far as I know, the only person moving on is Larry, you know, continuing to write A Real American Hero. Um, the new company has their own stable of artists and their own, people that they enjoy and they like, and that's to be expected. But I moved on. I just did some covers for Star Trek Resurgence. I did the RI cover for #5 that comes out this month, I think. As far as I know, it may have been pushed off. I'm not for sure. And then next week I start working on Marvel sketch cards for Upper Deck for their X-Men versus Avengers crossover event. So that'll be a lot of fun. But and then I'm wrapping up. I'm trying to get all of my commissions wrapped up before the end of the year. And I have some toy work too coming up. Packages that I'm doing for like Fresh Monkey Fiction for Eagle Force and some other stuff, and Hasbro. But
Hasbro.
really, yeah. So really though, the thing I want to focus on the most, that I really want to do is, I have my own IP that I've been working on for a long time, and then every time I think I'm going to get the opportunity to just sit down and do it, and write it out, and finish drawing it and stuff, something pops up. Like I thought for sure, like January, I was going to get to dive headfirst into it, and then um, this thing with Upper Deck comes along, and it's not a huge gig. It's just drawing like 60 cards for them. But
But don't those companies pay much better than like comic companies? They're big.
oh, for sure,
Yeah, so
yeah.
I'm sure you can't like just say no, I don't need that money.
No, God, no. There are very few jobs I turn down. I'm selective about like, excuse me, I'm selective about like the things that I draw. So like in the past, I've been commissioned. A guy sent me some zombie tramp covers, blanks, and he the stuff that he wanted me to draw on it, I was not comfortable. For my daughters were little at the time, and they like to watch me draw, and so I didn't want to draw that stuff in front of them. And second of all, I didn't really want my name attached to stuff like that. You know what I mean? That comes back to bite you in the ass. I mean, when you're working on like children's properties and stuff, and I mean, GI Joe, of course, is loved by 45, 50-year-old men all over the world. But I mean, ultimately, it's a property aimed at children, and like when you have stuff like that on your resume, I mean, you know who knows? It's just a sketch cover, but that stuff could pop up later on in life, and
And
I
that's a
just not for
it's a
me.
it's a risque company that's it's it's not your normal comics that kids
Yeah,
buy in a comic store. Those are certain types of fans that buy that type of stuff. All the
yeah, for
power
sure.
to them. But
Yeah, yeah, to each their own, man. I mean, I'm not gonna judge people for the things that they like and stuff. It just
yeah,
I'm not personally going to draw that stuff. So, but yeah, so I am excited about, probably, I would say probably uh end of January is when I'm going to dive head first into working on um my comic. There is, I mean, I can tell you about it here because we've already planned it out. We've talked about it before, but in, I think, the second week of January, right before my birthday, we're going to be launching the Kickstarter for the GI Joe and Cobra adult coloring books, and they are based on the art from uh the cover for 300. So, I mean, some of the characters will be changed a little bit, but I drew all those characters individually. So we have the art. So I've got about 50 kind of generic backgrounds to put the characters in. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So they'll so you'll be able to get adult, I mean, kids can color too, but a coloring book based on all of that art, a GI Joe coloring book and a Cobra coloring. There's so many. There'll be so many pages that I couldn't do it all in just one. So it'll be two. It'll be a GI Joe and a Cobra, and then we'll be doing, if you want like a sketchbook that references all of the characters from that cover, there'll be a already colored version that you can also get through the
Are
Kickstarter.
those
So,
approved by Hasbro, or is that something you're doing?
oh, it's just my own art. It's a sketchbook. So yeah, it goes under the radar.
Ah, well, yeah, and I was watching something with Robert Atkins the other day, an interview where he said Hasbro says what they don't know, they're not going to complain about as long as it's under a certain number and you do it at a
Yeah,
convention or something. So if
yeah.
they're letting Robert Atkins do that, then you shouldn't have any trouble at all.
No, and look, a lot of times too for them it's free advertising. You know, I mean,
Yep.
we're brand ambassadors. We do right by the brand. When you first start out working on GI Joe, you jump through a ton of hoops. You go through a lot of approval processes. All of your covers are and your interiors are really scrutinized. But once they feel comfortable with you, they let you go. And let you kind of do what you want, and that's been really great because I that only happened for like the first 6 months of me working on the series, and then the next 5.5 years there weren't really any issues.
Carte blanche. Speaking of going through hoops, you had to have gone through hoops to put some of these characters on this cover that you actually have in here because there's some very unique characters. First, I want to mention Audrey Sullivan did coloring, I guess it is for
Yeah, yeah, that's my daughter. Yeah, she colors a lot of my stuff, and she's colored other things too. Not for me. She probably has more credits than I do now. So, but yeah, she colored it. She did an outstanding job. She colored all of them individually. um
wow, that had to
you
have
know
taken
it
forever.
did take forever,
I
all
know you
said
were
and
working
done.
on this. I know the last time I spoke to you 8 months ago, you were working on this cover. So the fact that you were working on it then 8 months ago, and it didn't
Yeah.
come out till about a month from now, it came out in November 17th or around
Hmm.
there.
Hmm.
That's a long time. She had to have been coloring stuff.
Well, I finished actual drawing. It took me about 3.5 months to finish the actual drawing, and then she was done with her part probably a month after that.
Wow.
So that's probably like 3.5, 4 months ago. Yeah, we finished everything. So yeah, it's been done for a while. Um, but yeah, it did take her a long time. She started coloring. Um, she started coloring about a month into me drawing it, and so
In order to keep on time.
she had a big chunk of characters to choose from to start with.
Now you have two people that helped you with research,
Hmm.
Dustin McCoy and Daniel Thomas. Now,
Yeah,
what was the extent of their research that they were doing, trying to find characters? What?
yeah. So basically they kind of both did the same thing, but I wanted to it's better to have two people looking all that stuff up, and then you can cross reference. And that's kind of what happened. Daniel gave me his list and Dustin gave me his list, and then we cross referenced, and incongruities and stuff like that you pull out, like, is this character really part of it, and is this character part of the a real American hero universe, or and so they did a really good job. They did a really deep dive, and they were invaluable. So between the three of us, we came up with a pretty um, a, a pretty thorough, airtight list of what characters would be on the cover. But see, I went into it wanting to break the Deadpool record, Scott Kulbisch's record for Deadpool number 27. I mean, that was my goal. I mean, um, I had first of all, when I went into it, I had no idea it would be cover A. I had no clue. I thought for sure it'd be like an RI cover or something like that because it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And when I told Tom I could do it, I didn't really know if I could do it. I had no idea if I could fit all those characters on there. I knew that the record was like 237 characters or something like that. So I wanted to beat it handily. So I knew it needed to be over 300 characters. So when we got to doing it and got to putting it together and got the character lists together, we were short.
You
Like
were?
we were really, really short. Yeah, because we were only putting originally the intention was to only put characters, first, second, third, fourth tier characters that appeared in A Real American Hero. And I knew I couldn't put the fridge in it. Even though he appeared in it, Hasbro did not have the rights, and they're absolutely like adamant. Sergeant Slaughter, I knew that the figure was coming out. I didn't know that the agreement they had with him was just for that figure, and I was told that I had to take Sergeant Slaughter out, but that's a whole other story where I fought for it. But when we fell short. We were only at like 250 characters, and that's with pets. And Guinness doesn't count the animals.
Well,
And so I was
that's
like,
what I was going to ask you. I was going to say, do the pets count as characters?
no,
There's a lot
I
of
knew.
Cobra pets that aren't in here.
Yeah, Fiona's in there.
But that's the only one, I think.
That's pretty much the only one because fairly large. But I knew I needed to have the Joe pets in there, and so they're in there at the top, except for Polly. Polly's on Shipwreck's shoulder, but I knew I had to include them, so we did make room for them. But so I started pulling characters with
There's a bunch
Dustin's
of Devil's
help.
Due characters in here.
There's a couple Devil's Due characters in there. There are characters that have only ever been toys.
Yeah.
And there are characters that have only ever appeared in the animated series.
Yep, you're right. Like Big Blob.
Yeah. The Wiper. The Wiper's kind of like the Where's Waldo of the cover. But
it's hard to see everybody that's in here. I have to really look close to try and identify it. A friend of mine and I were trying to do a contest. How many characters could you name the most? I was like, I'm pretty sure I can name 99% of these, but there's a couple that I can't name that are in here.
Yeah,
there's a guy that looks like an S&M guy up
so
here.
those are the Payne brothers.
I don't even know who that is.
So the Payne brothers are.
Oh, I know who they are.
They're
That's
like
the one where
Cobras.
Snake Eyes version 3 took their clothes, right?
Yeah, they're like like Cobra's torture specialists, and they play a big role in like a 3 or 4 issue arc later on in the Marvel run.
Right.
But yeah, people are like, what's going on with them? I'm like, well, so there's a lot of Joe fans that know the early Marvel stuff and they know the IDW stuff, but some of that later Marvel run, the print run is so low, and the focus was like on ninjas and shit like that. So they were so they're not familiar with those characters, but yeah, they're real, and they wear those outfits. It's crazy. It's crazy. First of all, it's crazy to think that back in the Marvel days when that stuff was so saccharine, like white bread.
Larry was never saccharine. Larry never did it as a saccharine comic.
Absolutely not. It was very subversive if you read between the lines and stuff, but visually it's hard to believe that got through at that point, because those later issues were very toy centric. They were very about pushing new action figures and new toys. And then you have this these characters, serious, like S&M. They're like, one of them was wearing a ball gag, in one of the images in the Marvel comics and stuff, and like chaps with like a leather thong. I'm like, holy shit, but I put him in because
the thing is, Wolverine and there were some ninja characters like Saber and a few that were kind of like that in Marvel comics. So I'm
sure
because it was similar, maybe they let it go.
Yeah, but when you have like, you got to wonder like how much how much did Hasbro have their hands in it, those later issues? Like, did they just like, whatever, who
I think they
cares,
let Larry do whatever he
Yeah,
wanted
yeah,
to.
yeah,
As long as he got the
probably.
toy in there, whatever the toy was, the version of the toy, I think they were
Right.
like, yeah, do whatever. Because that whole thing with Firefly, obviously, where he added to the Arashikage origin of Snake Eyes, making him the blurred master, that's a perfect example because that was in that
Yeah,
period. So they were letting
yeah,
him do whatever he wanted.
yeah. And it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. But yeah, I mean, I knew I had to add stuff like that in there. I knew it would be fun for some people would be like, what the hell is going on? But for those that really know and do deep dives and stuff, I figured they'd appreciate it, Like I wanted some really like some characters in there that people are like, what is this? How is this even part of GI Joe? Like
Well,
Bongo the Balloon Bear,
that's one of my
you know?
all-time favorite characters from the comics that has not
Yeah,
gotten a toy. They've
it's
done Hard
rad.
Master, Soft Master, Billy. They've done the October Guard, but they've not done her. And I think that's a
Never.
perfect character to do. But
Yeah,
she has a vehicle.
right, right.
You did the clown, which that's a lot of favorite fans'
The white
favorites is the
clown.
clown.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
was the only one you didn't do his whole menagerie or anything. It just hit him.
No, like you can only go so far. Like I still want to have, you want to be able to put in characters that are like, like fourth tier, right?
Yeah.
But you want them to still have some um like deep attachment to GI Joe or Cobra.
Is that like the
So
Action Force stuff? You showed a lot of Action Force in
yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah. I did that on the connecting cover too. So the fourth was it 299? 299, yeah. There's Baron Ironblood and because when I did it, so first of all, before I even knew that I was going to do this big connect or this big 300 cover with all those characters on it. I had done the Cobra connecting cover kind of as a follow up to the GI Joe one,
Yeah, that was
and
done quite a while prior,
oh my
wasn't
god,
it?
it was done like a year and a half ago, and because it was supposed to be on an earlier arc of issues, and Tom had just kind of forgotten about it. And I mean, that happens. Like so much going on, so many things in the works, and he had forgotten that I had done that set of covers, and so I was like, "Look, you've already paid for these." Oh, there's my cat. Sorry, she's Zoe is.
Hi,
We
Zoe.
should we should have named her FOMO because she is in everybody's business all the time. Um, but yeah, so I mean, he had forgotten about it, and I told him, I was like, look, you've already paid for it, and I really want it on the cover. And so he's like, look, it's going to be scheduled for the final arc. I'm like, okay, that's cool, I appreciate that. And then after he told me that, that's when I told him I had the idea for 300, and he was all on board with it. He's like, yeah, why not, let's do it. But at the point, still, I didn't know it was going to be an A cover. I just knew that my Cobra connecting cover would be the B covers. So,
Well, I have
and that
my
was,
my print, my poster print, whatever you want to call it, of both the GI Joe and the Cobra ones.
do
So
you
I'm
have the do
very
you have the big one, like the
yeah,
6 footer?
yeah. I
Man,
think it's the large one. They both, all three of mine that
yeah,
I've gotten from you match. I'm still waiting for my 83 lineup.
that is coming. That is currently being worked on. I can't wait for everybody to see it because that's a low print one. That is one that the 83. So first of all, personally, that's 83 is like one of my favorite lines. That's probably one of my favorite groups of characters. Um, 82, 83, and 84 were probably my prime years for collecting GI Joe, and those characters were just top notch. And 83 like stands out as like some of the best they ever did. And so when I decided to do that print, and everybody was kind enough to pre-order one, um, I knew it was never going to be a cover. Uh, it's going to be broken up kind of like one, so it could, even
Could
though
have
it's
been.
never going to be one. I just wanted it to kind of match the other ones, but that's going to be a limited print. That's 20 people. 20 people got that. and that's it. I'm not. First of all,
I think you
they're
made an
too
announcement about
expensive.
this. I think you
Yeah,
made an announcement that you didn't want to continue, which really saddened me because I was really looking forward to 84 and 85. And those are my years right there, 83 to 85. And I was like,
yeah. I stopped collecting. I mean, I stopped collecting in '89. Like I was in high school when I stopped collecting, and yeah, at that point, it wasn't. I obviously didn't play with them. I was just getting them, and some of them I'd open
box.
and put up. Some of them I'd just leave in the box or whatever. I was just buying. It's kind of one of those things where you're buying them to buy them.
Yeah.
You have this you have this routine, and you're just like, oh, I'll just go buy a couple new GI Joe figures. You're like, what am I doing? Because at that time, thinking about college and girls and my car and my job, and it kind of fell by the wayside, just like every other guy, uh, at that age. And so, yeah, I mean, part of me would like to continue on doing the other ones. My worry is that I put in all of this effort, and nobody wants them, and that's the problem too, is because the minimum order on those from my printer is 20, and that's why I set the limit at 20. And so I've only pre-sold 16 of them, so I'm going to have 4 extra that I just have to pay out of pocket. And that's fine. I'm not worried about that, because I'm sold them for enough to where they're all covered. So when I sell the 4, eventually it'll be some profit. But I'm happy they're out there. I'm excited for people to see what it looks like, because it's really because they don't have to go on a comic book cover. Um, I get to spend more time making it look like it's a team that's getting ready to go into battle, and they're setting up, and you see like the personal interactions between the characters, and them like loading the polar battle bears up, and just that kind of stuff. you know it, it, it's what I originally wanted to do with the original 13 connecting covers, but Hasbro had some say in that, where they all had to be like, you know in that pose facing, and
Well, one of the things about that I appreciate that you did was I mentioned the Cobra. I'm like, God, wouldn't it be cool to get the Cobra? And you did that, and I don't know if it was because me asking or what, but I appreciate it because it was what, like maybe 9 Cobras that year, 83, if I'm not
yeah,
mistaken, new ones. And you
not even
included, I
I don't
think,
even
the steel armor or whatever it's called.
yeah, I don't even think there's 9, but it's a small. I mean, it's the print is the same height, but it's obviously not as wide, not nearly as wide. It's about the size of it's like it'll be like 18 by 20 or 24 by 18. So it'd be a nice companion piece to it. Um, and Cobra's always a lot more fun to draw.
Of
They're
course,
just
because they have the most
their
interesting
uniforms and
characters.
stuff are just so much cooler. It's like the Empire, with Star Wars. They're way cooler and so much more fun to draw than the heroes.
So yeah, well, I'll be looking forward to that. I was glad that you still do, but I was sad that you weren't going to do it in the future because I really was looking forward to 84 and 85.
Down the road, if there's enough interest. So with me not being on the series, I don't know how much interest people will continue to have with me drawing GI Joe in an unofficial capacity. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
I do, but you were selling posters of this or prints of this and the figures, and did that sell really well or do really well for you? There's got to be.
yeah. So I did a print run of 100 of the cover art. I sold, gosh, I want to say, don't quote me on this. I want to say we sold like 75 or 80. So I still have some left. But yeah, I mean, that was good. That was great. And then I did a signing at LA Comic Con for Lids. And they had a print of the cover that they were giving away for free to their customers. and I was there signing for 2 days, and so that was kind of cool. Got the word out about promoting the cover and everything. From what I understand, the issue has been selling out everywhere at shops,
Yeah, you
which
can't
is
find the A cover anywhere. It's been sold out, as far as I am aware. People
that's
can't
pretty
get it.
rad.
Yeah.
That's pretty
Well,
rad.
because
And
it's a record-breaking thing, people want it.
yeah,
It's going to be in the Guinness World Record as the most
yeah,
characters
yeah.
that come. So it is a rare thing in that sense. But not only that, but you sold like all the individual pieces, because from
I
what I
did.
understand, you draw these all individual and you put them in the computer and you like map them into the big picture.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's the only way to do it. So I learned early on. So when I did the big GI Joe connecting cover where it was like 163 characters, something like that. I drew that, as one big piece. And like I messed up a few times, and so I'd have to start over. And so I learned from that one. When I did the Cobra connecting cover, I drew all of those characters individually as well on the Cobra connecting cover. And then Audrey, and she colored it, and Audrey and I put it together digitally, and so it made it easier because it moved so many times. And that was the only way I was going to be able to try and get this work, because retail space on that cover was such a premium. It was so difficult trying to figure out like where we're going to fit everything. And my youngest daughter, Chloe, she actually built, she did like a paper model of half of a Coliseum, so I could take pictures at a certain angle to see where like, and she made these like made these strips with like people on them, characters on them, and so I could look up and take pictures and see like how the people would stand and how big they would be, from the angle that I was trying to do it at. So she was involved in that too. It was pretty cool. And yeah, they moved around a lot because we had to add characters. I was like, these aren't enough characters. I've got to add more. And then we were worried because Hasbro requires the GI Joe logo to be a certain size on the cover. And so when we got it done and I started talking with Neil, who does like all the logos and stuff at IDW. It was like, I don't know where I'm gonna put it. I don't know where I'm gonna put the logo. I don't have room. And he's like, let me talk to Tom, and we'll talk to Hasbro. And Hasbro was so cool about it. They're like, they came back and it was so small, like tiny. I was like, holy Moses. Yeah. And I was like, that's so great. And they were super cool about it. And so yeah, we had to make that space up there empty. We couldn't put characters behind it, it'd be waste. And so then when we were doing it, we're like, this looks stupid because there's literally nothing there. And so I was like, let's put the snake armor in.
Did you have them
And
like digging through the mountain or whatever, or
no, so I got the idea from the very first GI Joe animated miniseries when Snake Eyes goes into the cave
oh, they
with
turn
Flash,
around?
and
Yeah,
they're turning. And so if you look at it on the cover, one is completely turned,
yeah,
one's slightly turned, and one's fully turned. So it's that scene where they're all
right,
turning like that.
yeah.
So that's where I got that from.
I figured because you got one in there, it was completely visible. And then I was like, what is these? And I was trying to figure, it looked like they were buried. But now that you explain that, it's obvious.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it would be cool on the cover if we had like the snake armor like hidden in the walls of the Coliseum, because it's obvious like a Cobra Coliseum.
Right.
That's why I put the Cobra banners up in the background,
Yeah.
so but yeah, that's a little nugget of information where I got that idea from, just to put something there. So if they did do a virgin variant, or with the print, it didn't look goofy.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then obviously the Destro, there was enough of Destro's body to put the indicia on the back.
Yeah, yeah. So originally it was going to go near the spine, so it would have covered a huge portion of Cobra Commander. I was like, no, put it over Destro, because it's literally just his black outfit,
Yeah.
and if you don't see all of that, who
Not
cares?
big, right.
Yeah.
Speaking of Cobra Commander, you have several. I think you have several versions of Cobra Commander in here. You have the Fred 7 Cobra
Yeah,
Commander,
yeah,
but then you
yeah.
have Fred up here on the top, unless that's a different Fred.
It is a different Fred.
So that's why I was what he had to have been thinking of this when he put these in here because he wanted to show both versions of Cobra
Yeah,
Commander.
because they're different people. So, I have the OG Cobra Commander, and then I have Fred 7, which is in the armor, and then I have Fred Broca, which is again a different Fred. So, since they're different people, they can, I can use them. It doesn't People aren't like, why is there two Cobra Commanders in here? I'm like, because they're different people. That's why.
As long as you
So,
know your comic book lore, you wouldn't have an issue with it.
but yeah, exactly. But see, you do, So I mean, you understood that it was Fred 7. So
Yeah. But one of the ones that I was curious about was Snake Eyes because I don't see a Don Moreno in here.
Don Moreno is in there. She's up. She's up in the back. She's up by the new characters in
Oh,
near
wait
the
a minute.
back row.
Is this?
Yeah, she's on there.
Uh, yeah, you probably can't see her.
Yeah, I can't see it, but yeah,
It's
she's on there. Yeah, it's
okay.
probably her.
Yeah. Because a lot of these characters in that row, I don't recognize half of them.
Yeah, they're
You
they're
put
all.
Gary Goggles in here.
I did. I did. Yes. Sightline. Yeah.
Yeah. You got
Yeah.
this. I wish you had put that's the one thing I wish IDW had did when they did this page. I wish this was a list of everybody.
Yeah. So it's huge. The list is very thorough, and it's huge. And I wish they had done it too. They had before they even approved the cover, Audrey and I sent them the black and white line art all together, and then each one had a red. All the Joes had like a red number on them, and all the Cobras had a blue number on them, and a corresponding list to the side. So we sent them a legend so they could go through, and they there was no pushback because I already knew not to put the fridge on it. But Sergeant Slaughter, it was literally the week before it was supposed to go to print.
Wow.
Tom emailed me and was like, you have to take Sergeant Slaughter off. And that's when I said, I don't understand why I have to do that, because there's a Sarge figure coming out in the classified line.
Yeah.
Not knowing that the agreement that they had with him, only covered, his likeness on the figure. And so I pushed back and said, look, can you have them talk to him and find out, like, because I really want to leave him on there. I had a backup plan. I was going to, if I absolutely had to, I was going to replace him with the character from the Slaughters Marauders fan club action figure set.
Oh, yeah, I knew what
The
you're talking about.
African American character that's
Yeah,
like
Sergeant
Sergeant Slaughter.
Slammer.
Yeah, yeah. So I was going to replace him with him if I had to. But apparently they spoke with Bob, and he was like, "I'd absolutely love to. I'd love to be on the cover."
Right.
And so now, other than, I know he's on the GI Joe 3D cover from Blackthorn
Yep.
Publications, but as far as a Real American Hero, this is Sergeant Slaughter's first appearance on a comic cover.
Wow.
And
So you got many different layers of breaking records on this then.
yeah, it's also so I guess the guys that are into like comic book speculation and stuff, it's an important cover because there's like 45 characters on it that it's a first appearance, and many more than that it's their first appearance on a cover, let alone first appearance in a Real American Hero. So it's a huge first appearance cover.
Yeah, well, a lot of the comic book characters that were not toys from the original Larry Hama era, I don't think any of them appeared on a cover, even though some of
Very
them
few.
died in issues and had long-running story arcs. Like Bongo, she was in probably about 30 issues of
She was
continuity.
in Candy Apple was in a lot
Yeah.
of issues, and yeah, I don't thinking back, yeah, I don't think she's ever.
Nope.
I'm thinking about like all the Bob Camp, Herb Trimpe, Mike Vosberg, Mike Zeck covers. I don't remember her being on any
They're
of
all
those.
John Byrne like and Mike Zeck designer covers, like with action going on, but they really
Yeah,
had hardly
yeah,
anything to do with the story. That
yeah.
was the time of that comics that they did stuff like that.
Right, Mike Zeck.
Yeah.
Uh, Man, Mike Zeck's covers blew me away when I was a kid. And you're right. Like, so a lot of my older covers on GI Joe, especially some of the early ones, I'm very influenced by those guys who believed that a cover shouldn't just be a pinup. Um, a cover needed to be um, like it needed to sell the book, and to do it, it needed to tell a story. Talking to Dave Gibbons, who drew the Watchmen and stuff, and the cover was the first panel of the comic on every issue, and he was like, the cover needs desperately to be a part of the story. So with like the first few issues I did, the first like 5 or 6 issues I did, they were vehicle inspired covers, and I needed each of them, even though that they didn't tie into the book, I needed them to tell a story. I needed people to look at them and go like, something's happening. It's not just the Baroness in a sexy pose, you know. I mean, like it
It's not the
even
mid
with
'90s anymore.
no, but you know what? Sad to say, Baroness, doing a risque pose and wearing her tight leather costume still outsells like everything else that comes out. I mean, that's just the way it is. But I mean, like with the 300 cover, yeah, they're all standing there in a pose, but I wanted them all like doing something. So they're not. So that cover that came out in the early 2000s, that kind of that broke a record too, before Deadpool, where they're all kind of just standing in front of the Capitol. I
There's like a
didn't want
Joe one and a Cobra one, right? And one's
Yeah,
facing this way and one's facing that way.
exactly. I didn't want that. I didn't want them just standing there like toy soldiers. They all needed to have like some sort of
Well,
they were coming in getting ready to fight.
I understand what you were going. This is in an arena, so they were all either
Yeah,
cheering or going, "Hey, get him, Cobra, come here," or Duke,
yeah,
or
yeah,
whatever. That's what it looked like. A bunch of fans in an arena, like cheering their side on, and they're all in
yeah.
an action-like thing, which I understood immediately when I saw how
Good,
you
good.
designed it and did the work on it. I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Because
Yeah,
that's what GI
yeah.
Joe versus Cobra ultimately is. They
Sure, sure.
boiled it down
Yeah.
to Duke and Cobra Commander. Yeah,
Right.
there you go.
Yeah, yeah. If everything the toy tells you to be is to be believed, it's Duke versus Cobra Commander always. So, and that's kind of why I put them down in the forefront. I needed something happening in the middle to tie it all together, and that's why you know I put them down there like that. So,
Well,
but
you're
I'm
an
glad you
artist.
recognized it right away.
Well, you're an artist, and I know you have to be able to tell a story. And comics, like you said, the old way of telling a story in a comic was to capture the fan. Stan Lee used to do it all the time. He would put this outrageous thing on this cover with a word below. Can you believe it? True believers, blah 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 blah. He's gonna
Right.
do this, or that's gonna happen, or this is gonna happen, and that's how a lot of those artists from the '80s were trained at Marvel.
Hmm.
Anyway, the Marvel
The
style.
Marvel method. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you see the Dreadnoks riding down on a cover on their motorcycles, you're like, oh God, that looks awesome. What's going to happen? Or you see the Grim Reaper with a big gun and somebody's probably going to die. This kind
Yeah.
of like Zartan, or an action scene with vehicles with them jumping out at you, or Storm Shadow with his sword coming after someone, or those things grabbed you. And
Yeah.
obviously, this being the 300th issue, it has to grab you. There's got to be something element wise where people are going to go into it and expect that there's something good going to be in this.
Yeah. It's hard too with that particular design of a cover when you're trying to showcase all these characters, and space is limited. um it's hard to make it seem like anything other than them just standing there. I had the problem when I did the GI Joe, the All Hands on Deck, the GI Joe connecting cover with all those characters. So when I was doing that, it was kind of like a class picture. Like they're all standing there. Some of them are talking to each other.
Then you have
You
the
know,
photos of the deceased guys.
yeah. So yeah, and they're paying homage and showing their respect for their fallen comrades, holding up photos with the black band of of friends that have died in battle throughout the years. IDW wanted it to be current with a Real American Hero run, so people that were dead would be dead on that cover. 300's a different story, but people
Except
on the
for
connecting,
sneak peek.
yeah, there. I mean, there. So that is one where the people that were doing the research for me, very conflicting ideas about who was alive and who was dead. Sneak peek was brought back, but I was told, nope, he's dead. Definitively, he's dead. It's
Larry
like,
screwed up. Larry
yeah,
screwed up and used him in a story, and
yeah,
he did not realize he had killed him off in the War of Cobra.
right. Just like they told me there when I was putting on Cool Breeze, they're like, no, Cool Breeze is dead. But at that point, it was already going to press. Like I couldn't change it, and I'm like, well. And so one God love him, God love the Joe fans, but one guy like messaged me and was like chewing me out online, and I just let him go ahead, type, get it all out of your system, just keep typing, keep typing, keep typing. And I said, look, and he's like, how, like his favorite cover, show him respect, da da da, he's dead, da da da, whatever. I'm like, be fucking glad that Cool Breeze is actually on a cover and just take it and go. Like, be glad he made a cover. He was never on a cover before. He's on a cover, he's represented. Just enjoy it. Enjoy it. Don't be mad. Don't be mad. He was
There's a lot of
represented.
anal retentive people out there. I have my particular quirks and stuff like that, but I know I have the common sense and the wherewithal to realize something happened. Like the Cobra Commander, I'm like, wait a minute, he's got different Cobra Commander on here, and then he's got
Yeah,
Fred up
there's a
there.
reason.
It's got to be a reason. So let
There's
me
a reason.
find out the reason. So I don't criticize, and I'm not that type of person to begin with. But obviously, there are worse people out there that are anal than you're or I about this stuff, and it's just part of the community, part of the
Sure,
fan base.
sure.
You're never going to be able to change that type of stuff, but
No, no.
it's how
And
you
the
react and respond to it. If you're respectful and you let the guy do whatever he's going
yeah,
to
you just do it, just say what you want to say, and then I'll just tell you what it is, and then we just move on with our lives and stuff. It's fine, I understand people's, like, I'm passionate about things, like I like, so the franchise that I love and follow most is Star Wars. So like I'm a massive Star Wars fan. And I'm a huge G.I. Joe fan too, but nowhere near the level of the fan that I am with Star Wars. But I'm not so passionate that I get upset when they change something or they do something wrong. Like people like people like when the Phantom Menace and those movies came out and they're like, you ruined my childhood. I'm like, how do they fucking ruin it? Did they take all of your copies of Star Wars, the original trilogy, and burn them? You can't watch them anymore? Like, look, here's the thing. Enjoy your fanfic and then just don't watch those movies. It's really simple.
Yep.
Read the books, you know,
That's a
do
whole
like
other thing.
yeah, it's a whole other thing. And but I'm not so passionate that stuff like irks me that I have to be like angry. And I think stuff like that, like where you're so passionate that you get mad at the creators
You
and
ruin
angry at
your
the
own
creators.
experience. You
Yeah,
ruin your own
and you're
experience.
ruining it for other people too. Like I think that's a taking a little too far. But I do understand. I do understand. And so the errors on those connecting covers, we just fucked up, just that's how it is. And
I think they just said they Larry explains it this way. They just hired a new guy and gave him Sneak Peek's code name because
yeah,
it was available.
shit happens, right? Yeah, it's available. They didn't retire his number. So guess what? You're on the team and you get to use it. So, but so that's why. So after that one, going forward when I did the connecting covers for Cobra. So yeah, so back to what I was saying. So yeah, they're all posed standing up. So my idea was a class picture. So there's a story. So it's a class photo and
Right.
everything. So the Cobra one, they're preparing for battle. Those guys are getting ready. They're all lined up, and all the troops. And even if you look in the background, there's stuff going on with a lot of the troops in the background. Like the
That's
first
the
issue,
thing.
296. There's two. I'll give you an example. 296 in the background. There's two HISS tank drivers, and they're standing in front of a HISS tank, and they're just shooting the shit with each other, while all these other troops. And one of them is actually holding a coffee mug that says "World's Best Cobra"
I
on it.
saw.
You can see it in your poster probably.
Yeah, but that's the thing. You do these really funny things. I shouldn't say all of it's funny, but it's unique and it's the deep dives. Like this robot, I doubt anybody's gonna know who the hell this robot is right there. I
From
know who
issue
that
3.
robot is and where he came from. I'm
Yeah,
like, you really have a knack for this minutia that you're covering like all the bases, and I can't
trying to.
imagine anybody being disappointed except for the one guy about the
About Cool Breeze.
yeah.
Yeah. So what's really funny too is about that cover is, so people, I started getting messages about the Cobra one, and they're like, where's Serpentor? Where's Crocmaster? I'm like, okay, get it out. Um they're not there because they're dead in the GI Joe story at that point. When those were drawn, those characters were dead. They weren't featured, like they weren't, like the guys in Cobra weren't holding up these photos and stuff with black bands because I had the idea that they were going into battle. That's why they have all, like, their hovering vehicles behind them. The terradromes are there and stuff. And B, they didn't seem like the sentimental type. Like you wouldn't see Cobra Commander holding a picture of like, oh, poor Serpentor. Like,
that,
he's dead.
that would have been the coolest thing, is to show the stupid freighter sticking out of the mountain where he buried like half the cobras in
Right.
that storyline. That would have been even better. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're in that ship over there.
Right. But I hid stuff all over on those covers. You probably see it better on your poster, but so the temple behind him in the center cover, which is 298, that was my little like hats off like love letter to Larry Houston, because he designed that original Cobra Temple for the animated series. And so I wanted to include it. And if you look up in the top left on one of the balconies there on the temple, I put the mass device.
Yes, I
Is
did see that. I was like,
Yeah,
you bring everything in, and that's what I like about you. You don't just ignore animated fans. You don't ignore toy fans. You don't ignore IDW or a Devil's Due or even just Marvel. You're an all-inclusive fan, which I think is cool.
well, I
And you're
appreciate that.
human.
Yeah.
So humans err once in a while. We're not
Yeah.
perfect. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So I listened to the people that were doing the research for me, and cross-reference it, and they agreed, and that's what ended up on that GI Joe cover. And I mean, shit happens. I mean, it's not like the characters are still there, they're just not in a frame. So they would have been on the cover anyway, they just would have been dead in a frame.
here's an
So
idea. In the future, you can have somebody fighting in the forefront and have them be in a cemetery. You can have all the dead cobras on the tombstones in the background.
right, I do like a where they're all ghosts, a ghost army
Yeah,
cover.
they
But
did a Marvel
there's
Who's Who issue where the dead issue were all ghosts rising from the thing. Exactly.
So I mean, look, like I did, the connected cover with just the original 13 Joes. Like you think what could go wrong on that? But if you look at the fourth issue of the 5 issues, um, and I didn't get, usually I get an email when I'm part of the issue where I can look at it and verify that there's a if there's a problem or not. But I didn't get anything to verify it, and the issue came out. But they cut Steeler's head off. They
Yeah, there's
instead
like
of
a
putting
portion of the cover that's missing.
yeah, but on the on the 13, Steeler's in the Mobat, and the logo, the GI Joe logo, covers his entire head. And I messaged my editor Tom, hey, what the hell happened? He's like, oh man, I'm sorry, I missed that. The funny thing is I used Tom's likeness as Steeler. So I was like, okay, all right. So okay, was it really an accident, or he just not want to be Steeler on the cover? So, but I'm sure it was an accident. But yeah, they cut because Tom doesn't have any control over that. But they covered him
That's
up.
the funny thing when
So
you get all those 5 or 6 covers, you try to put them all together as a comic themselves because they're only on the front part. They're
yeah,
not like this one where this is a gatefold cover.
yeah,
Where you get the whole piece of artwork. Those there's like a fraction of the cover on every one that's cut. It's not
yeah.
complete all the way
I
across, and I hate
so
when they do that. They did that with the old
yeah.
X-Men comics, X-Men #1, where they broke it into 4 or 5 parts. But as a gate hole, it was complete. But when they cut it, it was fraction of the pictures on all those. But Jim
Because
Lee made them all like centered.
yeah, in the printing process, they have a certain amount of bleed area that it's usually like an eighth of an inch it can shift. And so that's a big part of the problem with connecting covers. It doesn't, I mean, I don't know what I could do to fix that, because I put enough of, like, there's no characters like right there. So if it does cut off, it's like a shoulder or something, you'll still see their head or whatever. But yeah, I know that there was an issue. There was a couple errors with the Cobra connecting cover where 296, the GI Joe logo on that one, was smaller than all the rest of them, which was frustrating. And that the vehicles were put over the Joe logo on that one like they were supposed to, but then subsequent issues they were behind the logos. So I mean, it is frustrating. I mean, there wasn't a lot I could, not a lot I could do about it. I did the cover work, and I sent them the raw files, and then I sent them files with the logo on it, how it should look on each one. And it's just how the ball bounces sometimes.
When you
It's
have moving pieces like this in a big cog, like a cog in a big moving thing, it's one of those situations where things happen. You got to
yeah.
keep the ball rolling. There's not much you can do, especially with this. You know, uh,
Yeah, there was but let me tell you, so I knew that there were problems with the connecting covers. Believe it or not, the one for the GI Joe connecting covers, the all hands on deck, that one came out really great. That one lines up really nice. All the logos are the same. It turned out really beautiful. I have no complaints about that one. It turned out gorgeous how Neil laid it out. I knew there were problems with the Cobra connecting cover, and so with that in mind, knowing that I was doing 300, knowing that they were getting Guinness involved, and and hats off to my wife. My wife, okay, so Guinness, they're located in England, their offices. My wife, at least 3 times a week for a few months, would get up at 4 a.m. to call them every day. They were impossible to get a hold of. They were extremely difficult to work with. And finally, when IDW had all of the art in hand and all of the finished colors, that's when they finally got involved. And my wife was able to hand that off, and she didn't have to deal with Guinness anymore. Um, and so, but with that in mind, and with Guinness involved, and how important I thought the cover was, I I had my hands in everything, like, talking to Neil, and making sure that it was, when it went to press, the colors were, being printed at the right saturation. And because I didn't want things to get lost. And I mean, like, it's cool. The cover turned out awesome in respect that, a lot of those characters in the background, even though they're really small, you can tell who they are for the most part. I
yeah,
mean, some of them you can't tell who they are because you just don't know.
yeah.
it's not because you can't see them. It's because you're like, I'm not sure who that character is because I don't remember them. I don't remember reading about them. But nobody goes, oh, I can't make out that character, like it's blurry or whatever. So I was super happy about that. I can't tell you how happy I was that how the printing turned out on it, that people could like see everything. I was really really worried because some of those
Well,
characters got turbo small.
it is a very subdued color palette. I will admit to that. It doesn't like well, like brightly jump out, whereas the Cobra cover is a little different than that.
Yeah,
The
it's supposed to be dark. It's
Yeah,
supposed to, the cover one is very dark. It's supposed to be, there's the dichotomy between the GI Joe cover and the Cobra cover because the GI Joe cover is very sunny.
I don't want
Yeah,
to spoil it. So yeah,
it's the GI Joe cover was very sunny, and the clouds are out and the Sky Strikers are flying through the air and the conquest and stuff. And then the Cobra one, the mountain's dark. It's cloudy. It looks like it's going to rain, and stuff. So there's that dichotomy between the two covers. That's it. Supposed to evoke an emotion, between the two. So, but yeah, the GI Joe cover, it turned out really yellow. There's like, and that's not, it's not planned. It's just the way, because the cover wasn't laid out by like color of costume or anything like that. It was laid out basically so we picked like six colors or six or eight characters that needed to be in the front. The main characters, you got your Baroness, Storm Shadow, Destro. They need to be in front. Duke, Scarlet, Snake Eyes, Hawk need to be in the front. But beyond that, I went in order by the year that they came out.
yeah, I could tell that.
And it goes, and so when I still have my list broken down. All the characters were broken down by the year that they came out. The only time that I deviated from that was when there was a subgroup. So all the Dreadnoks were together, no matter when they came out. All of Sergeant Slaughter and Slaughter's Marauders, they were all together, and the Renegades were together, no matter when they came out.
Now, there's one weird subgroup character, and I wanted to ask why you did a Python Patrol. It looks like Televiper. Why that Python Patrol, but none of the others, and no Tiger Force?
Probably because we were running out of space.
Okay.
And I drew. So look, there was, I sold all the original art, but I drew close to 380 characters. But at some point when we had scanned them and we were laying out, we're like, this one doesn't make the grade because there's no room for it. And so we just started leaving some out here and there. And Tiger Force, honestly, some of those when they're really small, some of the characters that we would have used, you wouldn't have been able to tell they were Tiger Force, just because the pattern, like on the Cobra Trooper, the yellow lines on the black costume are very, very tiny. And the minutia of that, if he's in the very back, would get lost. You wouldn't be able to tell.
I figured you might include only the original Tiger Force character of Sky Striker. He'd be the only one you might put in there because he's a one-off that was not a duplicate of somebody. But I don't know. I haven't been able to find them yet. So
there were a lot of toys. There were a lot of toys characters when we were running out of characters that only appear in the comic book. There were a lot of toy ones that we had talked about and that we thought about, and where we would put them. And why would they be in there? Did they make sense for what we were trying to do? Because
Sky
then
Patrol characters.
I did put Sky Patrol characters in there. They did show up. I thought it was kind of cool to have those characters, and I thought they looked good.
Yeah,
I thought they worked for what we were doing. Enough. Yeah. Like we put in
Claymores in
like
there.
some of the Eco Warriors too, are in there. Because their costumes look cool. They stood out enough and everything. One thing that we couldn't do is if like you have so many different costumes of like Firefly, or you can't start putting all the different costumes. You have to put like a definitive costume.
Yeah.
Like Hawk was a tough one because I wanted to use every character's first costume. Snake Eyes, I love the goggles, but I know everybody wants the visor on the cover. Um, Hawk was a tough one because I wanted him in his green, fatigues with his yellow buzz cut, but then he looks too much like Duke. And so I have to put him in the brown leather jacket with
That's the most recognizable version of him. His first
yeah,
appearance, people don't even
yeah.
know that he was in the first original 13.
Yeah, they forget that he came with the MMS, and so yeah, so I for those characters I had to use their most recognizable uniform and look. But after that, we just stuck with everybody's first appearance, how they looked when because well, for the most part, for the most of the run, their first appearance in the comic book looked like their first appearance of the toy, because that's what they went off of.
Yeah.
And so that's what we stuck with. And when we got to the end, we're adding characters. We tried to think about like what would make sense as far as Easter eggs, something fun,
Yeah.
um, tied into the other characters. Like when we added the Arashikage clan, we Demon Granny, Hardmaster, Softmaster, Blindmaster, all of those, were put in there and stuff. Like, did we need to put Demon Granny in there? No, but it rounded out the
Yeah.
group, and she's in the comic and stuff. And so, and Pale Peony, uh, those obviously make the cut, and so that's why we did that.
There's some that are significant to Larry's recent runs on the series as
Mm-hmm.
well, characters that are in here, which makes sense that they would be in there. But I doubt, unless you are a very strict comic reader only, very few people would recognize those characters other than those comic readers.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I knew who they were. I was like, oh, he put some of the modern Larry Hama comic characters, even though they don't have toys or nobody probably would know who the hell these characters are. They're in on
yeah.
this cover. So that's why I was saying that you covered all the bases as far
And
as I could tell. And then there's so many interesting, other little interesting things about it too.
yeah, yeah. And
The
that's what it feeds into. I mean, that's what it pays fan service to, is the cover. With the cover, I tried to pay fan service to not just the comic book reader, which is the most important because that we're selling the comic book, obviously. So paying fan service to the comic book reader, but also paying service to the people that grew up on the old Sunbow animated series, and then people who just love the toys, and adding stuff in there just for them. And so that's and I think the cover did that in spades. So
Well, it's a 300th issue. It's a special event. I feel you were right in doing all these decisions and making it a special event for the fans, not only the community, because there's several different variant covers to this besides your own, but it adds to the collectability of the whole thing, because there's story elements going on and things like that. It hits the right buttons on many levels.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah. I always think so one thing on the cover that people always point out, and it's hard to explain because it's an optical illusion. Um they think that Shipwreck has this gigantic like giraffe neck, and he does not, because if you look where his collar is at,
oh, there's a shirt.
his shoulders are just slumped. And I
Yeah.
didn't draw him with an undershirt, so he's just bare chested. So it looks like he's got this long neck, and people don't notice that the collar is up here
Yeah.
and comes down, and I look back and I'm like, fuck, I probably should have drawn that a little differently, because people
I,
give me crap. People give
I
me
thought
crap
this
about it.
bazooka was a little bit big, but I didn't know if that was intentional
It
or
was intentional. So when I started doing the cover, knowing that I had to do 300 characters, look, you just can't sit down, because if you sit down and just go at it like, I'm just going to draw this character and this character and this character and this character this day.
it won't
If
match
you don't,
scales.
if you don't think about it ahead of time, they'll all look the same. Because you, as an artist, when you're drawing, you unless you're thinking about it, you kind of draw everybody the same shape. And what's important to me is because I think back to that other cover where they're all just lined up and they look like toy soldiers. And there's nothing wrong with that cover. That's fine. It worked for that one. But I wanted them to look like these are real people. And real people are different sizes, different shapes, different heights, different colors.
And in GI Joe, they have certain personality characteristics.
They do. And everybody, like, and that's so when I started out, I drew about 50 different just bodies, right? So I could like say this body, this character, and this character going on this body. This character, this character, this character, I'm gonna use this body and line them up. And so based on their personalities and what I thought that they would look like in real life, I picked large, muscular bodies. Because if I drew everybody the same, it would look absolutely ridiculous. It would look asinine. Like in the real world, people are not the same height. People are not the same build. And I thought it was extremely important that everybody on the cover looked different. And so yeah, people, and the unfortunate thing is because he wears a bright red, football jersey, he stands out like a sore thumb, but Bazooka's, I always imagine Bazooka, because when you look at the toy, you can tell me too if you agree with this, and you don't have to, but when you look at the toy and you look at Bazooka's head, his head looks too large for that figure. I always thought his head looked way bigger than his body.
A lot of
And
the
so I was,
sculpts, a lot of the sculpts too, like Charboil's head is
yeah,
way too large for the proportions of his body. And there are 2 or 3 figures that are like that. Bazooka is one of those as well.
yeah, he's just got this huge jaw and huge noggin compared to the body. So when I imagined him when I was a kid, and in the cartoon he was kind of drawn a little more broad. So I always imagined him as large. He's like a large dude, in the cartoon, it played into that, like he was like this hulking kind of dim character, not the smartest guy in the world. And so that's how I just drew him as this big dude. I thought he'd be cool. And yeah,
It's perfectly fine. When they brought him back in Devil's Due, when they were trying to recruit everybody during the Devil's Due era, bringing the whole, he was like this huge fat guy. He had gained all this weight and stuff like that.
right.
He had to try and get back in shape to join the team. He never made it because he was too big.
Right.
So
And
it
then
makes sense.
Resoluti's killed off before the first episode even starts. He's dead. But yeah, so I tried very hard to make sure that everybody looked different. I thought that
But
was important.
what an artist is. They're telling stories, regardless of the picture is a flat, one-dimensional picture. On that interview with Robert Atkins I was watching the other day, he was explaining you've got to have characteristics in the drawing to make it look like it's a real individual person doing something
Mhm.
that would possibly pop out at you, that it's not flat and one dimensional. And as an artist, you have to be able to tell a story doing that. And that's what makes great artists like George Perez and Alex Ross, and artists that aren't quite as good as those guys.
Yeah.
And you've done an awesome job over the years on GI Joe, Robotech, and a few other properties that I'm probably forgetting, or
Yeah.
you wouldn't be
Yeah.
doing
That's fine.
this if you were not that good, right?
Uh, I mean, I hope so.
Well, doesn't
Um,
success breed like more work?
yeah. So, I mean, I hope so. The problem is that because I've been on GI Joe and Robotech, and the toy lines I've worked on are, tend to be more military-esque, and I haven't really drawn professionally. I haven't really drawn superheroes. And so it's kind of odd to me, because I can. I haven't had those opportunities presented to me. And then when I worked for Disney, I didn't, it was princesses and shit like that, for 6 years of my life. But so I'm anxious to see, like, people get to see like my superhero stuff, with this Marvel versus event or X-Men versus Avengers card set, which would be pretty cool. But going forward, after the new year begins, I'm not really going to be taking a whole lot of commissions, if any. But each month I'm going to be doing a piece, um, that reflects something that I really enjoy from like my childhood, something that makes me happy. And I'll put it out there. Like every month I'll have like this piece will be, the original art will be available, and then I'll do like a print run of like 20. And listening to Todd McFarlane, talking to him, just he's like, don't chase success, you know in this industry. Like when you've like been able to do some things that get your name out there a little bit, start really doing what you love and what makes you happy, and that other people that feel the same way, that enjoy your work and the things that make you happy, will hopefully come along for the ride. And so I'm in a position right now where it's comic book industry is very different now. And it's people are posting all this stuff where companies aren't paying them for their work and everything. I saw a bunch of posts and friends of mine that are commenting on there like, oh yeah, I haven't been paid. I've never had that problem with IDW ever in my life. When they pay exactly when they say they're going to pay. And so I've been fortunate. I hear other stories from other people about other companies, but I've never experienced that. But I know the comic book industry is very different, and it's hard to make money. So I'm going to work on my own IP, and I'm going to do some projects that make me happy, and that I hope, because it's stuff that I enjoy and that I love, there are other like-minded people out there that respond to it and stuff. I mean, that's the best I can do. And
I think
I hope that sometime I get to go back to GI Joe, when it starts up again, early next year. I don't know if it'll happen, but I mean, it'd be nice to revisit the franchise. I love the franchise. It's been the last 6 years. It's been very, very good to me. So,
And I
and
think the fan base as a whole, from my experience, I'm one of them. We've enjoyed the work that you've done. And if we didn't, we wouldn't consistently be buying your commission arts and all these posters and coming to visit you at appearances and stuff like that. I'm sure all the ones that you've done over the last month have been lines out the building,
not,
hours.
I mean, not quite. What's really funny is the fan base of GI Joe. There are obviously fans on the West Coast, but the further east you go, the larger the fan base of GI Joe gets. It's a very like eastern side of the United States and the southern part of the United States. The fan base is much, much larger than it is on the West Coast. But it is what it is. But yeah, the fans, I can't thank them enough. The fans have been incredible. They're a great bunch of people. And you know sometimes they like to nitpick and stuff like that, but like I said, I get it. I totally get it. I'm not one of those guys that's like, oh my god, they won't leave. Like, no, I understand. I understand because I'm a fan. I'm a fan myself. I hope that comes through in the covers that I do. I hope people understand that.
Easily.
You know, I know my shit. Like,
Definitely know your stuff. Maybe you need to find a better person to give you lists in the future.
oh yeah, no, I've got that. I've got that on lock now.
Okay.
I've got that I've got that nailed down. I do.
Well, Jay, I hope your health continues to uh, be on the better side of things in the future. I am only looking to the future for great things from you. Again, I'm going to keep an
Appreciate
eye
that.
out. I know you're doing Star Trek, and hopefully this card set is successful and other projects and other endeavors in the future, your own IP are successful. Make sure you get on social media. Like, you're very good at social media. Not a lot of comic artists are, but
I try to be. I try to be. It's so I get it. Like again, I come at it from the viewpoint of a fan, and I the people that follow me on social media, I treat everybody as a friend. You know, I if people message me, I do my best to respond. It may not be like this huge diatribe or whatever, but I respond and acknowledge that, you know, you're there and I see you, and um and everything's an open book. Like, you know, it I use social media for what it's meant to be, social, you know. And I hope that, like, people have asked me, like, why do you talk about like your diabetes and, you know, share what you're going through? And I'm like, honestly, I hope that for a lot of people, especially a lot, I mean, I see a lot of fans uh you know, in this industry, and it shows and stuff, that like health is not a priority. And so I hope sometimes that I am a cautionary tale. Like, I'm going to be like 50 in January, and eat right and exercise and take care of your body, because if not, you end up getting needles poked in you 3 times a day and in your eyeballs every 2 weeks. And like, don't let it happen to you, you know. And yeah, so I mean, because I care about, I care about the people in this industry. I care about the fans, and I'm honest about everything that's going on there, because I hope people learn from it and don't do what I do and ignore it, hoping it'll go away, because it won't.
you have to be real to yourself and truthful to yourself. If you can't answer those two questions, then you've got some problems that are more important than comics. That's for sure.
For yeah, absolutely, absolutely,
Um,
I would agree 100%.
but I think it's wonderful and stuff like that. I'm not sure. You're obviously, you have to be familiar with George Perez. He was very vocal about his illnesses leading up to his passing and stuff like that, and he
Yeah.
challenged it and took that on and put that out there for the public and stuff like that, because he's an icon in this industry, or the comic book
Hmm.
industry,
Yeah.
and he is loved by hundreds of thousands of people around the world. Uh,
Millions.
Maybe millions. I didn't want to over exaggerate, but yeah.
You're not, you wouldn't be.
And so he took the courage and put his whole life out there for everybody. And you've done the same thing, and you're courageous in doing that. I don't know if I would be that courageous, because I get nervous about putting myself out like this and facing the criticism and stuff like that. But you've had a lot more things out there in the public than I have, obviously, with your life and family and your illnesses and things like that. So I think you're courageous, and I applaud you for that.
Appreciate
Um,
it.
and I only wish the best for you in the future.
Thanks, man. You don't have to be scared though. Look, you know, people can type all they want to about you,
That's true.
but until you, you know, the only person that can give any of those things power is you. If you let it bother you, I mean, don't. It is what it is. People are going to say, you know, in this world, people are going to say what they say. It's keyboard courage.
Yeah.
Half the things that people say about me, they would never say to my face. I'm 6'5", 260 pounds. People don't come up to me and, you know, say stuff like that. I wouldn't do anything. Like, I'm a big softy, but they don't know that, you know. And but yeah, don't. man, don't let never be shy. And the worst things that people can say are no, or I hate you or whatever like that. But I mean, who cares ultimately? As long as you like yourself and the people that you love like you, that's all that's important, man. You know?
You're right. You're right. And the fact that I'm doing this, I'm getting better at it every single
Yeah.
time. Getting more courageous and more open and things like that. And it's just one of those things. We all have our insecurities and stuff that we think about. It's just one of the things that I think about.
How I got over it, look, when I was in high school, I was shy. I was so shy. And after I graduated from high school and I was in college, I got a job in radio. Um, Not because I wanted to be on the air, but because I thought it was really cool, these DJs introducing new music to people. I was really into music, and I love music, and I like the idea of sharing it with people. I like talking about it. I really enjoy talking about my passions and stuff. And so I went to the radio station to get an internship, not because I wanted to work on the radio, because I wanted to meet these people. I wanted to meet these like-minded individuals. And I got a job eventually doing like running the board op, the potentiometers and all that stuff, working in the station. And then I got to do a couple of commercials. And then one of the guys that did the overnights went on vacation, and the program director didn't like him. And so in radio, if you go on vacation and you're not liked, you probably won't have a job when you come back. And
What?
so, yeah, so this guy named Mike Stover went on vacation, and Alex, the program director, is like, "Hey, I need somebody to fill in doing the punk show." And I was like, "Okay, I'll do it." Not knowing, and I practiced because it was coming up for like a week, and I practiced. Oh my god, I practiced for like a week, and I hated the sound of my voice. I hated the way I transitioned into songs, and I had no idea what I was doing. And I got on the air, and I was awful. I was absolutely awful. I sounded really bad. I stumbled, I stuttered, I misspoke, I started songs at the wrong time. And after the punk show, it probably shouldn't have started with the punk show where songs are like a minute and a half long. It was very stressful. And after that, I worked the rest of the overnight that night, and I just took my time doing breaks. And then I filled in the next night, and I was more and more comfortable doing it. And I just thought, I didn't think about the people listening to me. I just thought about the stuff that I wanted them to know. I just thought about talking about what I loved and what I enjoyed and the music that inspired me, and I was hoping it inspired them. And when I did that, man, smooth. I didn't, stumble. I didn't stutter. I transitioned well because I wasn't thinking that there's like 50,000 people talking or listening to me right now. And then pretty soon that didn't bother me anymore. It was like a week into it. And then Alex was like, "Hey, you know what? You're really good. Would you like a job?" And next thing I knew, Mike Stover was gone, and I was doing the overnights full time. And I worked for that. I worked in the radio industry for almost 3 years, and I do not miss it. I miss what I was just talking about, sharing things with people, but I do not miss the paycheck and the politics and not being able to take a day off for fear of losing my job. Because that was a real thing. That's how I got mine. So, but yeah, I mean, you're doing great. You're doing
Well,
great.
I love talking about GI Joe, and I love talking about comics. That's where I started interviewing folks in comic book conventions, artists, writers, editors, and stuff at comic conventions, and that's how I got better at interviewing and talking to people.
Yeah.
It's just like you said, I love this, and I want to talk about it, and I want people to see the exuberance and energy that I am putting forth about what I love, and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
talking to you folks about GI Joe. It's not even work, actually. It's fun.
And that's what it should be. That's what it, when you find a job doing what you love, and it shouldn't feel like work. It should. And that's good. That's good. I'm really happy that you're able to do this. And I hope a lot more people can come on and do an interview with you, you know.
Well, we can only wait. Time and waits for no man. We just gotta have to hold on until the next person. I've done well in the year that I've been doing the live. I did it just on podcasts prior to that, but now live it's different. But
Yeah.
it is, you just got to keep working at it. And the more you do, the better you get, like you said. And I
Yeah.
appreciate all the people that have come and talked to me and spent their time with me. And this is your second time talking to me. And I really
Yeah.
appreciate it, because you don't have to, you're not getting paid to do this.
No, of course not. No, I'm happy to do it. And I have nothing to gain by promoting GI Joe anymore. I'm not currently on, the title and stuff. None of us are, except for Larry. So I mean, Netho is the one that made out real big. Netho is at Marvel, and man, yeah, doing gangbusters there. Thunderbolts, yeah, good for him. Good for him. He's a really good guy. He is a really, really good dude. So there's no like jealousy there or anything. Like, he deserves that dude works his ass off, so he deserves everything that he's gotten. So I'm very happy for him.
Well, I want to say thank you. I appreciate you taking your time out of your
Yeah,
schedule. Say hi to your wife and tell her thank you for holding down the fort for you. Uh,
I will.
and I hope to see you in the future and talk to you again in the future for your future
Absolutely.
endeavors and things like that. So thank
Absolutely.
you very much.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate you having me on.
My pleasure. Thank you. And we'll talk to you next time.